Channel Zero Season 2 has come to an end. It's taken me a little while to get to this review. I apologize for that. I've been so busy with every other thing that's been coming out. Stranger Things and the Halloween episodes I was doing. So I'm like almost a week late on this. Oops. I really tried though to get to this and I just couldn't fit it in anywhere. But anyway, let's get into this. First, I want to talk about, since it is the season finale, I do want to talk about my overall thoughts really quick on the show, and where I would rate it next to the first season, which I thought the first season was damn near flawless. I was blown away by it. It kept me intrigued the entire time. I really almost had zero complaints when it was over, and I went around telling everybody that it was the best show, like the best horror-related show on television. And, you know, my hype for this was huge. So I knew that. So I kind of went in and I got my expectations where they needed to be. Realistic, which is what a lot of people need to do when they go into something they're super excited for. People blow their expectations out of proportion and nothing can possibly ever live up to that. So I did go into this going, you know, just let it be what it is. Don't try to compare it to the first one. Don't try to expect, you know, the same thing or better or anything. And so I did. And I have to say that I did enjoy this season, no doubt. But if I have to compare to the first season now that it's over, I definitely enjoyed the first season a good amount more than I did this season. I just felt that this season almost lost itself a little bit along the way. They built up a ton of mystery, which is fine, but a lot of it is unexplored and a lot of it is unexplained, which they don't need to explain everything by any means. But there's so many questions that I still have that I felt like they basically just ignored because they didn't know how to do it otherwise. You know, the ending felt so quick. Like, getting into this episode, you know, let's talk about the ending really quick since I'm talking about that. It was just kind of like, you know, the boyfriend goes down, they suck the memories out of him, the dad kills himself, well, has them kill him, and then they just walk out of the house. It just was so quick fire. It didn't feel like an ending. It didn't feel like a climax to a 6-episode arc, because the show's only 6 episodes per season. It should be able to kind of keep accumulating tension and excitement and you know, and then have a big payoff. And I felt like this season didn't have some big payoff. I wasn't tense at the end. I wasn't like, oh shit, is this gonna happen? Oh shit, is this person gonna die? Oh shit. There was none of that. I was kind of just watching it like, okay, now he did that. Now she did this. All right, so he's doing that. Why? Okay, I guess. All right. And they walked out. Like when they walked out, because they talk about burning the place down during this whole episode. And the dad seems okay with that. And, you know, they just leave. They're just like, okay, bye. And then it ended and the credits rolled. And I was like, that's it? Like they got rid of that guy and they got rid of this guy and they just walked out of the house? Like nothing stopped them from doing it? Like, so Seth was just the bad guy the whole time? That was it? So the house has no control? Seth was it? That was weird. Anyway, so let's get into this episode. It starts 1 year later, which I kind of guessed. If you look at I think it was my last review, I said like, you know, that her friend was going to probably have to go look for her, and maybe it would be a long time, maybe like 6 months to a year or something. And so when it was like a year, I was like, oh wow, they really did. Like she's been in there a full year. Will she have any memories left? And then it cuts to her letting her father, Margot is letting her dad eat her memories. And she's like writing stuff down to see if she can at least, have a journal, to go back to. But ultimately, she's just letting her memories go. And she, when her friend comes to save her, she's like, I really don't remember anything else outside of this. When I looked at her life in there, I don't know, I'm not her, but I was thinking, like, is this really that enticing to let your memories go? Are you really that in love with this guy? Did you miss your father that much? I mean, clearly she did. But something I've been talking about this whole season, and one of my biggest problems, my main gripe, and I think I've said this in like every review now, but let me say it one more time, is that people's reactions and emotions in this show were just insanely unrealistic to me the entire time. To the point where I almost couldn't care about anyone or anything because they didn't seem to. Like when people would see something crazy happening, when Margot sees her friend show up and she's like covered in blood, and she's like, I would never forgive you. And it's like, well, if you remember her, then you remember she's your friend. You remember that you're in this house still. You remember that she's coming back to you. You haven't seen her in a full year. She's covered in blood. And literally your interactions are just, oh, hey. Yeah, no, I could never forget you. That's how, and it's not just because she's been in the house a long time. Because I could see that. Like if I was on this episode, I'd be like, okay, well, she's just mentally, she's basically not there anymore. She's almost like in a drug-induced state, kind of like the other girls that we find out about later at the end of this episode. Maybe she's being more like that, but that's not the case, because all the other episodes they acted like this. Like when they got in the house, none of them really acted like they were that trapped, scared, anything. The emotions in this season are just not there. And that, I don't know, it didn't give it any stakes. I didn't feel like they were that afraid. When your characters don't have fear, then how can you? You don't really feel their pain. You don't feel anything. So that was retained in this episode. And I think that was why this season felt, in addition to the things I said earlier, but that was one of the big reasons why I ended up being like, yeah, this season was fine. And the reason that I do like this season is because, much like the first one, the atmosphere and the tone of this is retained from episode 1 to episode 6. It feels eerie. It feels off-putting. Like, just watching it, you're like, this is creepy. Like, there's such an odd tone to this show. And now, the emotions being, lacking like they are, it does kind of add to that. What I was, the atmosphere and what I was just talking about, but it takes a little too much away from other things that I need, like investment. If I'm not invested in anything that's going on, I'm going to eventually stop caring. You might be able to do like a quick slasher movie in 80, 90 minutes, and for it to be all fluff and just murder and death and whatever, and you don't care. But when you're doing, episode after episode, they have to have more to them in order for me to keep coming back. Like, okay, I really like that person. Okay, I've really grown fond of this character and this and that. I didn't give a shit about anybody in this season. Not one person. And that's where this season had lost me. So anyway, let's get back onto it. This house just randomly, I guess, moves once a year because Seth has a different girl in each house, and I guess it looks like because they moves to Quebec like 1 year later, and she finally finds it, which I thought was cool. I really liked the shot overhead, especially where the 6 girls are like the panning shot for one, where they're all walking out and they're all wearing the same outfit and they're just like completely dazed and lost. And then they got the overhead shot where it shows them all like standing and then turning around. And then they finally let the family out of that cage and they start eating his memories. He didn't, and that's just it. It's like he could have ran. Like she let him out and he could have ran, but he just kind of, the dad ended up grabbing, but I just feel like he could have fought more. And that's what I'm saying. Like no one's reactions or emotions are believable at all. And you can't, empathize or relate. So whatevs. There's so many things that aren't explored. Like what the hell is this bubble that Jules is in and out of and breaks out of, like whatever that was, and so many. What is the house? And that's okay. I don't need that stuff answered, but I really wish that I would have been able to see a little bit more of it, talk a little bit more about it. So yeah. Yeah, I mean that's really it. I have other things here, but they're nothing worth really crazy mentioning. So I guess I will say that I'm a tad disappointed in this season. I think that if this episode would have ended strong, then it may have won me over into being like, yeah, I really enjoyed this season. But coming into this episode, I think that's also another reason why it took me 6 days beyond its release to get to it, was because I honestly wasn't that crazy to see the next episode. I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't wait. When Candle Cove was playing, I literally was counting the seconds down to the next episode. And every episode I watched it, the second it was released, and as soon as it was over, I gotta get to the next one. And when the season finale came out, I was like, what the fuck? I need it. This was like, okay, I'm watching Halloween 6, I'm watching this, and it's like, okay, can I get to it tonight? Well, I gotta do this. It wasn't like, oh man, I gotta do this. It was kind of like, no, I gotta do this, and I'll get to it. I wanted to watch it, but there wasn't an excitement in me, and that is such a shame to me, because I was so excited about it. Now, this hasn't tarnished the show for me. I still think this is a good season. I still think that this is worth watching. And I'm still heavily looking forward to season 3 and 4, since both have been confirmed. Hopefully that doesn't change if people didn't like this season. I see that this last episode isn't being rated so well, and I understand why. But definitely, I mean, I'm very curious on what everyone thought about this, so please let me know. But yeah, just being honest, I was a tad disappointed. And it's funny because Stranger Things just dropped, and my expectations were about the same. And Stranger Things was able to blow away my expectations. And this one went under. And at season 1 of Stranger Things and Channel Zero, I was in favor of Channel Zero over Stranger Things by a little bit. And this one now, I'm like, this is how high I am on Stranger Things, and this is where I'm at on Channel Zero right now, which it wasn't that way about a week ago. Well, no, a couple weeks ago, after maybe 2 or 3 episodes of this, and then Stranger Things came out, and I was just like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. So anyway, all right, guys. Until next year on this show,